that, you're referencing the way artificial intelligence might transform music in the future, where it'll be strange if a human made something.
Yeah.
Do you think AI is going to really affect the way music is made and listened to?
It's kind of a tease to the AI generation, actually. Well, I was like discovering every day a new AI website. You can, separate the stems of old tracks, and also they can give you a new track in 10 minutes. You can give the clues and the keywords, and they can give you something, But I think at the end of it, it's all human.
Welcome to Pop and Politics, your guide to art and culture in Turkey. I'm your host, Kenan Behzat Sharpe. Each week we host an artist, musician, director, writer, actor, or other creative worker in Turkey. Today we are joined by Orkun Tunç, a music producer and multi-instrumentalist. He is best known for his work under the moniker Armageddon Turk, a production team between Istanbul and London with Zag Erlat. Armageddon Turk has released two well-received albums, AnadoluLo-Fi and Sorry Kid, A Human Made This. Starting off playing with local punk and hardcore bands like Turmoil and Rashit, my guest has collaborated or made remixes for names like Janet Jackson, Sezen Aksu, Gulden Karaböcek, Pet Shop Boys, Moby, Teoman, Kelis, and Gorillaz. He also won a Turkish Film Critics Association award for Best Film Music. He currently plays drums for the popular act Kum as well as other groups. Orkun, welcome to the show.
Welcome. Thank you.
So I want to ask you about your music and career, but first of all, the earthquake is at the forefront of most of our minds at the moment. And I know you've been following and thinking about the various acts of support, whether internationally or here in Turkey. What are your thoughts about the way the music scene has supported or not supported people after the earthquake?
Well, from the first day on, I was checking the big names, what are they sharing on what's going on, and some names like Coldplay or members of Pink Floyd never mentioned anything for 4 days or 5 days in a row. And after that, Madonna shared something, and after that, I think some Turkish people maybe shared something with her, and people started to follow the steps. And I think what Metallica did and also some other acts did in UK was so good. I was really shocked about it, actually. But I was expecting more from bands like U2, for example.
Absolutely.
Which they're talking about these kind of issues all the time. And they were like, pioneers of this kind of activities, and they didn't do much of it. And that was quite shocking.
Now, what kind of stuff is happening here in Turkey? Are people putting on concerts, benefits, things like that?
Well, I'm speaking with the promoters and all kinds of venues and clubs. Right now, people are still sharing what they can earn from all the gigs, and they try to find ways to support the families and all needed, and also animals who were affected by everything in that area. And still, even the little clubs still collecting monies from all the gigs and promoting this related with Syria and Turkey earthquakes. And it's going well, but some of them I'm not sure what's going on, and there's some festival-ish kind of activities coming up. We'll see about that. And I think some major concert promoters planning some big events by April and May. And we would like to also support all kinds of activities, and we're on hold.
Of course.
Yeah.
I want to also ask about your most well-known project, which is AnadoluLo-Fi.
Yeah.
It's a really interesting album. I want to ask how it came into being and where the idea came from.
Well, short story. It was the beginning of pandemic by March or something. I called my partner. We were like doing lots of remixes with Zag, and he was in London and I was in Istanbul. And I said, "What if this is our last album during this, age of pandemic?" And he said, "What are you thinking of?" And I said, "Like I have something in my mind that we should do versions of folk songs from Anatolia." And he loves 45s and he loves 70s, 60s music, and he has a channel called My Analog Journal. And he said in a moment, like, "Yeah, let's do it." And we said, like, we shouldn't sample people and we should create our own tracks. And we tried to do a lo-fi album which can be listenable everywhere, at the background or reading book or staying at home and before you sleep or something, And that was our main goal. And we just wanted to make it as a gift to the culture. That's the general story of the album.
And speaking of being a gift to the culture, it's interesting because, Anatolian folk songs from the countryside have been inspiration for popular musicians here for a long time.
Yeah,
there was the Anadolu pop movement in the 60s and 70s, people like Tulay German and Barış Manço, etc. And of course, that was a really important moment of bringing music from the countryside into the cities. But what do you think it means to draw on folk music in the 21st century and in our age?
Well, actually, if you ask Orkun, 15-year-old Orkun, he would say like, "Oh no, Anatolian music, I don't like this," that kind of attitude. But after years, when you reach out to 40, you understand that your original music is folk, nothing more. And right now, many people discovering these old jams that are like really valuable and shows a different way of our culture. And during the end of 60s and to the end of 70s, it was like a golden era of pop, I think. That's what I think, And I work with many people who worked in that era, like İhsan Akça. He was one of the biggest engineers around that time, recording all the albums in 70s. And we were talking with him and he said like, yeah, it was a different era, more creative, kind of supportive in a way to each other. And it was new. That was the important part. And right now this revival is good, I think. Everybody's, enjoying their remastered copies and reissues and whatever. And also, I'm so pleased that bands like Altın playing, Istanbul shows and playing around the world, reaching out with this music. And I think it's kind of the beginning phase because American music, like especially the hip hop field, also discovering these jams like for the recent years.
Like people like Mos Def used a sample from
Mos Def, Timbaland, Action Bronson, many of them used, That's why it's a new era, I think. I mean, who would know Rihanna is gonna sample a Turkish song,
Mm-hmm.
That's my that's I'm aiming in the future from the pop music.
And one interesting thing about that album is you talk about your influences, but they're really broad. There's people like Spike Lee and Vanilla Ice, but also Abidin Dino or Fikret Mualla. Can you talk about what those influences mean to you? It's such a wide variety of things.
Yeah, of course. Well, during the pandemic, I was digging into the Turkish painters. And when I was, checking the stuff of Abidin Dino is more like a, Leonard Cohenish guy, in a way. But the conversation of him with other painters and other writers are really interesting. And the drawings of him, some of them used in jazz music in America. When the Atlantic Records were first formed, they used his drawings in many of the record covers. And that could give me some kind of inspiration, And I was like checking Fikret Mualla. Fikret Mualla is more like a Basquiat kind of guy, but in a different way. But the stylish, the childish drawing style and stuff inspired me a lot. When also making the music, It's more like when I did the Sorry Kid album, that was my intention to, you know, give some homage to those guys in a way. But also in the lo-fi sense, it has that kind of influence on me too, you know. Those guys are like the lo-fi artists, you know, to me. And also for Spike Lee, I always got influence from movies. And during the 90s, end of the 80s, I was a VHS Betamax guy. And we were watching the Spike Lee movies like Do the Right Thing, Mo Better Blues. Those gave me lots of inspiration about hip hop. Even my early ages, I was not into hip hop. I got influenced by them, you know, and I was a metal guy then. And yeah, those childish memories got influenced in this album.
And with the second album, it has a really interesting title, Sorry Kid, A Human Made This.
Yeah.
And I've read that, you know, you're referencing the way artificial intelligence might transform music in the future, where it'll be strange if a human made something.
Yeah.
Do you think AI is going to really affect the way music is made and listened to?
It's kind of a tease to the AI generation, actually. Well, I was like discovering every day a new AI website. You can, you know, separate the stems of old tracks, and also they can give you a new track in 10 minutes. You know, you can give the clues and the keywords, and they can give you something, you know. But I think at the end of it, it's all human, you know, in a way. And AI can help us, maybe. I don't know, maybe we can fix some stuff, but there should be a soul in it, in a way, you know. There's always be a comparison with human and the computer thing, you know. And also when we were starting working with this digital audio workstations, people are telling us, oh, this is a computer music. Well, it's not a computer music, you know, you program it. And I think it's going to be like that. Maybe AI can help you a bit, you know, can suggest you some stuff from the past or remind you some stuff. For the last thing I saw about AI was you can find all kinds of samples at Google right now from the AI search, which is interesting because there's so many undefined samples from the, you know, early hip hop tracks and electronic music. And this is a good way. In copyright sense, it's not a good way, but, you know, and yeah, the AI can help you. But it was a tease for the new generation because everybody thinks that AI is cool and human is not. And that's the way it is, you know.
So you're really also active as a producer, and I've read that you've complained that a lot of beats and production sounds really similar today in Turkey.
Yeah.
What do you think is missing in music today?
Well,
coming out of Turkey?
The thing is, you know, I think there's so many good stuff still. I think there's a progress in Turkish production too. But the main thing is people are copying themselves. I'm in my life, I never look at to another Turkish guy and made music. Okay, it's not that I'm not influenced by that guy, but I don't want to copy that guy, you know. But right now in hip hop, it's generally, oh, this guy did that kind of genre. Oh, I should do a drill track too. That's not my way of working, you know. And that's the missing part, I think. You should try some original stuff and be yourself in a way. And I think the most missing part is people are not listening to music. They act like they're listening, but I don't think so, you know, because algorithms good, you know, they can show you some stuff, but listening to music is another kind of experience, you know. You should dig into it a bit. It's not just like somebody's going to recommend you all the time, you know. That affects production, that affects your creativity.
Absolutely. And then you're also involved with a lot of new names doing executive production. There's people like Ani, Dante Faze, Frozen Clouds, Sorry Nobody, Skylark, Serra Atatürk. What are you trying to do with these new people as you help with production?
Yeah, also Naskas. These guys are really new. A couple of years ago, they started their music at homes. And when I find something new, I try to kind of develop them a bit. If I can help them, I try to be their friend first, not like I'm approaching them as a producer. I'm just telling them, you should maybe produce yourself. I can be helpful with you, what you're doing, you know? And that's my first goal and first approach. And sometimes many of them, they don't know how to finish up a work. And these kind of parts, I try to, you know, be supportive, find their way to go to the good songs, and whatever the best version of themselves that I can be helpful for. And also the record labels are kind of like trusting our tastes, and I try to show them some new stuff. That's my main goal when I'm producing with people, and I'm open to everyone who's doing interesting stuff.
And you've also had a chance to collaborate with a lot of big international names.
Yeah.
Like you've done remixes for people like Janet Jackson, the Pet Shop Boys and Moby. How did these things come about?
Well, I started remixes really young age, you know, like more than 15 years ago. Started with new names and some kind of Turkish names. And when I'm trying to reach out to a name, I try to dig their business management first, and if they're gonna, you know, have something. And in the years, I try to base a reference list, you know, even it's small, if it's a big one thing leads to another, you know. We first worked with the biggest name we worked was Gala, maybe you remember from 90s, Freed from Desire. And she was so supportive for us, and she moved to us another level for other people, you know. Then we worked with a New York agency, and they sent us lots of American artists. Then I dig into UK. I went to Pet Shop Boys guys. Pet Shop Boys lead to us to Gorillaz, so on, you know. And this is kind of a journey, you know. We just start from somewhere, trust in yourself, you know, and if you can do some good stuff, they like it and they try to use it. And they want you to be original. They don't want you to copy other people. That's the best part. Yeah.
So it's interesting. You have your hands in a lot of things. You've done these remixes for pop people. You have your own kind of hip hop, lo-fi projects. But your origins are really in the punk scene, right? And you've played with a lot of different bands. What is punk like in Turkey? I'm curious about this history and how you feel about it.
Well, when I started in the 90s, it was a like small scene, but diversity was good, you know. There were so many experimental musicians before us, and like Zen, for instance. But when I was playing with Turmoil, and I was in high school, you know, and we were recording tracks, and we released a 7-inch record. I couldn't believe it myself, you know, and I understand that you can do this stuff. And the scene is right now kind of like still small, but people are doing music at homes, and this makes it bigger, I think. But live-wise, it's not good in a way. I saw this because there are only 4 or 5 good venues to play all the time for punk hardcore bands or experimental stuff. But it's better in a way because the instruments are better, the systems are better, sound systems and stuff. But if you're original, you can find your way. I think that's what I believe, and I try to be supportive as I can do with new punk bands and hardcore bands. But I think music is diverse right now. It's multi-genre.
Yeah, and speaking of multi-genre, one of the bands you're working with today is a project called Koum.
Yes.
Which mixes a lot of different genres together. Can you tell me a bit about that project? He's become really popular too, Koum.
Of course, yeah. The first time I heard about Koum was my brother Mu shot a video with them as Bad Girls, his early band in the UK. And yeah, he was telling me, you got to check this guy, is like a really interesting guy. And after that, he went to military, I guess, and come back and made a Turkish album. And then Luca Fritz from Frozen Cloud said, like, I'm working with Koum and you got to check it out. And we just met and we just clicked in a way. And yeah, I said to him, like, would you guys want me to drum with you? and they were like planning anything about, doing a live show and stuff, but they got some ideas, and we just had a rehearsal together, and it worked incredible. Like we were like playing like 10 years, and we said like, yeah, let's do this. And one thing leads to another. We did some shows, perfect. And we said like, we should do an album together, I think people are gonna speak about this album for a long time, and we just recorded an album called Apartmanlar, which was decided 1 year ago, which is kind of like shocks me in a way, because we were thinking about Apartmanlar all the time. Like, and after this earthquake happened, and I said to Kum, I can't believe this, we were, and the first day of earthquake, we were in the studio. Wow. It was the first day of studio recordings. We were booked, 1 month ago. And yeah, we just recorded the album. And it was like a kind of like a therapy in a way for me, because I was like thinking every day and trying all the nights and watching all those news. And yeah, and kind of like Kum and Bedeviler saved my life in a way, and made me positive. And yeah, I'm so happy to working with this guy, and I love him so much, and I love my band, and they're so cool guys, And yeah, I'm enjoying it.
And last of all, do you have anything planned with Armageddon Turk? Will there be a new album with that project?
Right now, we're working on the new album with Zag. And Zag is doing lots of shows right now in London scene, and with Habibi Funk, he played a gig a couple of days ago, great show. And we said to Zag, like, I'm working on it, and let's start,
Will this be like Lo-Fi Anadolu Part 2?
Yes, like a volume 2. And we try to raise the bar. And raise the bar for ourselves, and try to do the best version of ourselves, for this album. And there are some remix works coming up, and yeah, can be shocking for some people, but yeah, I can't talk about it now. Yeah.
Well, I'm excited to hear what it sounds like.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for inviting.
Of course, it was a pleasure to talk.
Yeah.